And we are live. Welcome to another episode of the Healing Hour. I am your host, Sarah Fargo O'Brien. I am happy to be here. This is my second show this week. I am like all out of sorts. Yesterday felt like Thursday because normally I do the show on Thursday and I did our special edition yesterday. If you didn't catch it, you can catch the replay on my YouTube channel, and that's just YouTube/@ Timeless Therapist. And you can catch the replay of Johan Tokra and I discussing building resiliency and recovery in teams. It was a really good conversation. We had a lot of really good engagement from the folks that were tuning in yesterday, and you'll get a lot of good stuff there. Also, I'll remind people that Johan created a self-assessment for your leadership skills. I have included that in my free resources in the trauma-informed leadership section on my website. So feel free to go there and grab that handout. Okay, so today we're still talking about leadership. As I mentioned yesterday, that's what I'm going to be discussing this whole month. Coffee break. For a couple of reasons. One, it's Social Work Month, and I think social workers are just natural leaders. We are guiding people through our work all the time, and living by example all the time, and offering support and guidance all the time. So that's one reason. Another is there has been lots of negative conversation, maybe I'll say, around anything trauma-informed and trauma-informed leadership. So I want to come out and say some positive things about it, really explain what it is, let people know why it is actually useful in leadership. And I'm going to take this month in my shows to do that. Also, those that know me know that I am part of a national network called Integrate Trauma-Informed Network. We are an affinity group of professionals dedicated to trauma-informed care and trauma-informed leadership. This is a vetted and verified community. We have an application and a whole vetting process. This is my community. I love these people. And Integrate is hosting their virtual leadership symposium all month long. So the whole month of March, you can still grab your seat and you get access to materials for life. So if you still want to attend, you can. Everything's virtual and pre-recorded. And Julie, our amazing founder, will roll out every week notifications to everybody that is signed up about what to expect that week and what's going on there. So this is why leadership is the theme for the month of March. Piggybacking off of that, which, I get it. I say that often. The Healing Hour is now sponsored by Let's Be Diverse podcast. My friend Andrew and I are coming together to collaborate on this, expand both of our networks, and, put our stamp on the leadership world. Andrew has background in HR, and there is sort of a natural alignment in caring about people and relationships. So it's a really great partnership. I can't see your name, but I am excited that you are here, LinkedIn user. I'm glad that you are excited to learn. I too love learning, and I also love sharing what I know. So I'm so happy you're here. Drop your name so I can see who you are. I don't know why it's just telling me LinkedIn user. Okay, I think that's announcements sponsored by Let's Be Diverse podcast. It's Social Work Month in March, so give some love to your social workers. Sarah Fargo O'Brien is focusing on leadership in the month of March, and that is what is going to take us through our podcast topics. I'm going to have some other guests on some of my shows later in the month, some other people from my network doing some cool things in the trauma-informed space. There he is, Brandon Bishop. Hi. So glad that you could join me. Thank you for dropping your name in there. So happy that you are here. Feel free to drop all your comments, questions, your experiences with these things, or anything that you have going on. I love to be interactive here. People that know me know that I'm pretty relational and conversational, and that seems to just kind of work better for me than like talking at you guys all the time. So please interact with me. Yes, I'm still every now and again going to be taking my coffee sip break. It's really delicious this morning as I have this like cinnamon coffee cake creamer in it. And I've really been on like a cinnamon sugar kind of kick this winter. I don't know, that flavor is really speaking to me. I love a snickerdoodle cookie. I love anything with cinnamon and sugar. let's be honest. And that's what's in my coffee this morning, and I'm really enjoying it. So I have it in my cup so that I can sip it for the next couple of hours. So grab your coffee and join me. I will do a quick check-in, even though I gave you guys a lot of announcements about stuff that's going on. We'll take our 3 deep breaths and then dive into the content for today. So I have a lot going on today. My week has been all out of sorts. Monday felt like it should have been Friday. Wednesday felt like it should have been Monday of next week. I don't know why. This week is just like really long and draining, and I guess, kind of ready for it to be over. I don't know. I have a lot going on today. I have this show. I have another training for individuals in business and corporations that I am doing today. That is on emotional intelligence and emotional IQ kinds of things, especially for leaders. So that should be a good training that I am putting on, hosted by GRC educators. I have a couple of client appointments this afternoon, therapy clients. I have a meeting today. I'm like kind of all over the place. I'm wearing all kinds of hats. Yes, I'm going to pop in the comments as they come. Yeah, sensitivity. So Brandon tells us sensitivity to trauma was very important during my years as a chemistry teacher. I imagine it was. And depending on like what, if you are a high school chemistry teacher, a college chemistry teacher, or whatever the case may be, yeah, it's also a very sensitive time for young people then. And I'm curious about your stories. There we go. Leanna, hi. Happy Thursday to you as well. Let me answer this question. Can you attend the EI training? You cannot. It's already been scheduled, and it's through GRC educators, so they handle all the applications or the registrations for that. But check out GRC educators. I have 8 more trainings coming this year. They can maybe redo. They often like re-show or hold the trainings, and so you can check to see if my emotional intelligence training is going to be coming up sometimes later for them. But if this is something they're interested in me doing, definitely drop it in here. I can sort of create my own training that is for people, and I can do it pre-recorded so that you can have access to it. So if it's something that you're interested in, I'm happy to, take it outside of where I'm hosting it right now and host it for some other folks if that is not something they're connected to. Great question. Thank you for asking. I appreciate your interest. Okay, so let me take my 3 deep breaths. Even though I'm feeling kind of okay this morning, was able to have kind of a slow start to my morning, so that helps me not be kind of all over the place. But the 3 deep breaths is just good for us. It increases oxygen to the brain, it lowers cortisol, and it's all around good for our physiological system. So can't hurt us to take some deep breaths. So here we go. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Try to elongate that exhale. That's really what's going to give you that sort of calming relaxation effect in your body. In through your nose. Here we go. 1. And 2. And 3. Okay, let me pull up my slide deck, get into our content. Look at that, y'all. I'm getting better and better, man. One-woman show. I'm doing the comments. I'm doing the slide deck. I'm drinking my coffee. And I'm talking to y'all all at the same time. Woo-woo. Let me toot my horn. Okay, before I dive into this, today we're going to be reviewing the leadership framework that I have created to sort of neatly and succinctly talk about trauma-informed leadership skills and why they are important. Brandon comes back and follows up with us about being the chemistry teacher. And he says, in general, the students needed their emotional safety addressed before they can learn. Yes, 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 yes. You said it, my man. Like that is it. And that's not just true for students. That's true for adults. That's true for everybody. We cannot learn, and that part of our brain doesn't really click on if we are not feeling safe. Emotional safety is huge for performance, for function, for learning, for productivity. If this is not a concern to you and you are a leader, that is a concern to me. You need to be paying attention to the safety and emotional well-being of the people that follow you, because they are going to do better when that is taken into consideration. We are humans first. We are not robots. It doesn't matter what work you want them to do. If they are not feeling safe or they're emotionally dysregulated, it's not likely it's going to get done, or it's going to get done well. That is not the fault of the human person. That is the fault of the leader of having an unrealistic expectation. And so I love it that Brandon says that there. Emotional safety needs to be addressed before anybody can learn. Spot on. Exactly. We are going to talk about more of that right now. Again, like I said, we are now sponsored by Let's Be Diverse podcast. And if you need my information, my website is down here, www.sarahO'BrienLCSW.com. For Let's Be Diverse podcast, you can find that on LinkedIn. You can also look for Andrew Stout, and all the information about that he will certainly have for you. Okay, here we go. Leadership. I have this acronym that spells out leadership, and it's going to give us some skills and information about the principles and practices for trauma-informed leadership. Leadership today lacks some seriously needed skills to lead effectively and without causing harm. We know that. Trauma-informed leadership does this best, and I've created this framework with this handy acronym to help leaders hone in on skills needed in today's landscape. If you have ever worked under somebody who did not have emotional awareness or trauma-informed skills, it might have not felt so great to be following them or to have them lead you. I certainly have been in that experience. All of my jobs working in public mental health agencies, quite honestly, had terrible leadership, a lot of nepotism, a lot of red tape, a lot of hush, a lot of do this because we said so, whether or not it's ethical or not. And I'm talking about clinical social work jobs, y'all. Like these are serious jobs. Some of my jobs required crisis intervention work for individuals that were unsafe to remain in the community. And the poor leadership and poor guidance and structure around that is just astounding to me. It's way too much responsibility on the individual provider with not enough support from the system to do work that is really important. This is also social work month, so I'm going to give a shout out to my social workers all over the place. I know y'all are in the trenches. You've probably been in the trenches. If you want to get out of the trenches, come holler at me. I will help you start your private practice where you can have a lot more balance. You can do the good work that you want to without feeling unsafe and without burning out. I nearly have burned out twice, and once was certainly when I was in public mental health. And part of what led to my burnout was poor leadership and not feeling supported there. So it's huge to have effective leadership and leadership that cares about you as the human being. My buddy and colleague, Johan, is here. Thank you, Johan, in the house. Johan and I had a conversation yesterday about building resiliency and recovery in teams. So go ahead and catch that on my YouTube. I'm glad to see you, Johan. Thank you for tuning in. I always appreciate my friends popping in to support me. Okay, so today we're going to talk about trauma-informed. What does this mean? Trauma-informed leadership. What does this mean? the why. Why are trauma-informed leadership principles and practices important? And then we will get to what is Sarah's leadership framework? Drop your questions if you have any. I'm happy to stop and answer them. Okay, trauma-informed. This is how I say it. It's a how, not a what. And no, that might be cut off on your screen, but that's up here. It's a how, not a what. So trauma-informed is not what you know. It's how you apply what you know. It's a skill. It's taking knowledge about trauma and the impact that trauma has on people and using that to inform how you interact with other people. Any people, friends, family, kids, colleagues, strangers in the grocery store, whatever. It's the application of this knowledge and skills to work better with humans, to offer more pathways to safety and reduce pathways to harm. Trauma-informed is using human-centered communication in our interactions and trauma-responsive awareness in our decision-making both for ourselves and for others, especially decision-making for others if we are in a position of leadership. This is very important. What trauma-informed is not. It's not a clinical skill or a psychotherapy skill or a clinical modality or an intervention. You do not need to be a therapist. You do not need to be a trauma provider. You do not need to be a trauma therapist. You do not need to be a trauma medical provider, whatever it is that you might have in mind. This is not a clinical skill. I know we talk about trauma in the clinical sense a lot, but trauma doesn't just exist in clinical spaces. People that have lived experience of trauma are not always in clinical spaces. As a matter of fact, a lot of them are not, but they are out in the world with us. And so this is a skill that we can learn that doesn't have anything to do with clinical background or medical intervention. Trauma-informed is a human skill, people-to-people skill, interpersonal skill. Trauma-informed is universal, at least in my book. It can and should be used in all places with all people. And so this is the idea of assuming that every single person on this earth has a lived experience of trauma. To be quite honest, that is true. A lot of research has said that is true, especially post-COVID-19 pandemic. That pandemic was worldwide. And so worldwide, we experienced collective trauma with that event. We are experiencing some collective trauma over here in the US right now with a bunch of changes and things going on, attacks on DEI, a bunch of federal workers being laid off, all of that is happening and it's negatively impacting people. Negative impact from an experience is basically what trauma is. Not everybody experiences negative impact from things that are happening or traumatic situations, but if you do experience negative impact, it's probably trauma, meaning it's too much for you to hold and handle, and it kind of comes out sideways in behaviors and reactions and responses that are not helpful and do not help you function, but are a natural response to experience trauma. So when we come from a trauma-informed perspective, it's coming from this idea that anybody and everybody that we ever interact with can have this lived experience of trauma, and we need to have awareness about that and sensitivity to that. And because we have awareness of that and because we have sensitivity to that, it changes the way that we approach our interactions with people. Conversations, conflict resolution, giving feedback, asking advice, seeking support, guiding your team, all of that can be done with trauma-informed principles and practices to limit negative impact, or another way to say that is to reduce harm or limit causing more harm to people in the way that you lead. What do I mean by that? If somebody has a lived experience of trauma, of growing up in an invalidating environment where their feelings, their thoughts, and their opinions were always dismissed or ignored or challenged, or they were told they were wrong, then this person may and could and likely does have sensitivity to that happening in other contexts. So if you are a leader who invalidates your team, this could very much activate nervous system trauma responses based on past experiences. Do you know that as a leader? No. But should you be invalidating towards your team? No. And if we learn to not be invalidating, then we are reducing pathways to further harm, meaning we are reducing the likelihood that somebody is going to experience a nervous system activation of their trauma because of your behavior. Behavior being invalidating their emotions or their experience. Got another friend joining us. Marco, hello, welcome. I'm so glad to see you here. Thank you for joining us. We are talking about trauma informed and not a what. Okay, so that's trauma informed. What does this mean? I just gave that to y'all. Trauma informed leadership. What does this mean? This is about doing your own work so that you are self-aware in moments of challenge or decision making. We're talking about leaders, guys. Every person could benefit from this. But if you are in a position of leadership, whether appointed or, by default, whether or not you are specifically titled in a leadership position, if you have people that follow you based on what you do, that makes you a leader, right? And so if you are a leader of any kind, you are having impact. And so you need to be aware of the impact that you have, and you need to be aware of the decisions and choices that you make and the impact that is on other people. Some of this requires self-awareness to know if any of your stuff is getting in the way of being objective in some way. Got another friend in the house. Jay, hello, welcome. Hi, Jay. So happy to see you. Thanks for dropping in a hello. Trauma-informed leadership is about understanding and having empathy for fears and feelings, both yours and others. So this piece, understanding and having empathy for fears and feelings, is the emotional intelligence piece, guys. We can't have understanding about fears and feelings, emotions, and if we don't attempt to learn. And I've said this in some of my other shows, I'll say it again. If you were born before 1995, for sure, you likely did not get social emotional learning. I did not. This is all something I have had to learn as an adult. It's been kind of easy for me to learn because I'm a psychotherapist. So learning about feelings and fears, started way back when I was in my undergraduate and graduate program, learning how to become a clinical social worker. If it weren't for that, and then doing my own, self-learning and dive into this stuff, I wouldn't know anything about it. I was never taught this in school, was not taught this by my family system. And all the examples I had, just by learning by behavior, were not good and not clear. So if you do not understand and have empathy for emotions, both your own and others, then, as I like to say, I'm going to need you to level up. You're going to need to learn some emotional intelligence things, especially if you're a leader. Trauma-informed leadership is also about putting people over profits and human well-being over productivity. This is really important. Kind of like I was saying before, people are not robots. Like, we need to have a connection to common humanity, that just because you're in a leadership position, or just because you run a corporation, or just because you're a for-profit business, does not mean that you run your employees into the ground to make that profit. Let me say that again. Even if you are a for-profit business, it should not be about running your employees into the ground to make a profit. Things need to be equitable, they need to be inclusive, and they need to take into consideration that humans have finite capacity and finite ability. And we need rest, and we need creativity, and we need support, and we need time off, and we need balance, and we need to be able to spend time with our loved ones. It cannot just be work, 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 work. So that is important to keep in mind if you are a leader, especially if you are a leader in any sort of business. Expecting the people that work for you or that follow you to just be productive all the time is not reasonable. It's not realistic to think that somebody is going to produce quality work 40 hours a week, week after week after week after week. It's not possible. We go through changes, even just throughout the month. Women go through a lot of changes. Hormones change every day. Our energy levels change. If external things are happening in your life, that can affect energy, capacity, sleep, health. All of those things come into play. You cannot expect somebody just to be productive over and over and over again, and or then get upset when they're not. They're human. This is what's going to happen. My friend Carolyn, hey, it's okay that you're late. I'm so happy that you're here. I appreciate you, Carolyn. Carolyn's always here to support me. Carolyn and I got to work together on an anthology, a book called Bullied, How I Got By. Carolyn's story is harrowing, y'all. Get the book and read it. She's a badass of all badasses. I appreciate Carolyn being in my circle. Okay. The why for trauma-informed leadership. Why would this be important to adopt and enact these principles and practices into your leadership or the way that you lead? Use of these principles and practices enhances authentic expression, vulnerable disclosure, and feelings of safety. We talked about this a lot yesterday, Johan and I, about disclosure, being vulnerable, leading by example. So this would be that authentic expression, leading by example with authentic expression and vulnerable disclosure. So that vulnerable disclosure could be like owning how you feel, owning mistakes, owning when you made a decision that negatively impacted your team. When we can do that, this increases feelings of safety for people. It doesn't guarantee safety. It increases the likelihood, enhances the likelihood that people will feel safe. Use of these principles and practices supports honest accountability, acceptance of mistakes, and being open to feedback. So this means like not sweeping it under the rug or leaders that push it off on somebody else or on the team when really it was their decision making that led to some sort of outcome that was not favorable. Again, this goes back to that vulnerable disclosure, the acceptance of mistakes. If you can't do that as a leader, you are certainly not using trauma-informed leadership skills. But I would also just say you're a bad leader. Like if you are not accepting mistakes and being held accountable both by your leader peers and your team or people that follow you, then again, you're going to need to level up. That's not good leadership. And it's certainly not doing anything for the people that are following you, except making them probably mad at you, distrust you, and not want to do a good job for you, but just want to do what they can do to whatever, collect whatever they need, paycheck, time, experience, and move on. If you want people to show up and do well for you, then you're going to actually have to care about them. What else? Trauma-informed principles and practices endorses empathy and understanding, the valuing of differences, and doing your own work to increase awareness. So empathy and understanding and doing your own work is part of that emotional intelligence piece. You need to understand this about yourself. You need to have compassion for yourself and your feelings and your finite human capacity. And the valuing of differences, I think, is really important, especially as, you know, if you're over here in the US, then, you know, there's been sort of this attack on DEI initiatives and like what that really means. And DEI doesn't necessarily mean there is a valuing of differences. This is more of a practice than like a statement. And so valuing of differences is inclusive. It's equitable, right? It's across the board. You can look different than me. You can be a different age. You can come from a different place. You can have a different background. You can even have different experience, dress in different clothes, speak in different words, whatever it is. We have value for that because it brings different perspective. It allows everybody to be themselves. It celebrates and honors people for who they are without expecting them unreasonably to like fit into some sort of mold of something else. Valuing differences is huge in trauma-informed leadership. Okay, take a sip. My framework. I might end up getting through all this kind of fast today, guys. I don't know. We'll see. We may not be here for a whole hour. which would be fine. I have a meeting right after this and then a training right after that. Okay. Bye, Jay. Good to see you. Thanks for popping in. Hopefully you can catch the rest of it later. Let's get into the leadership framework. It's going to spell out leadership, LEADERSHIP. The first L is lifelong learning. What does this mean? This is a willingness to continue learning about yourself, about others, and learning trauma-informed skills with regular practice and adjustment and applying to work and life. So lifelong learning isn't just taking in information. Lifelong learning is also applying that new information. It's a two-parter there. And application is a big part of trauma-informed anything. It's how we apply things, not just what we know. So although we need to stay abreast of trends, of research, of scientific study results, all of those things, in general, in our fields, in leadership, we also need to continue to practice these things and integrate new information into how we do stuff. Lifelong learning is pillar L. E, employ empathy and equity. Being empathetic towards everyone despite differences, value differences among us, and promotes equity despite differences and promotes equity because of differences. Basically, this also sort of falls into the emotional intelligence like bucket here, guys. And I think to actually employ empathy and equity means that you have to value differences among people, because if not, then you're not going to be empathetic towards them. If not, then you're not going to find things equitable, even though they're different. This is a skill that you can grow. That's why this is a framework that's sort of outlining these things and what they mean. But to grow in empathy and equity requires self-work. That kind of goes back to number one, lifelong learning. If you don't know about this, then we need to step into learning about this. A, authenticity and accountability. This is recognizing and owning your mistakes and normalizing this. And that shows your authentic human side and ability to be accountable to your choices and decision making. If you pretend like you have it all together all the time, then that is what your team is going to assume. And they are also going to assume they need to show up that way. If there is openness about, hey, I made a mistake, or hey, we made that decision. We thought it was good at the time, but it actually had this negative impact or this negative outcome. I'm sorry about that. We're learning from this. I'm learning from this. I'm open to hearing your feedback. That kind of thing is what we need in leadership. And you need to be modeling that for the people that follow you. So not only are you championing for and supporting them to be authentic and accountable to their own decisions or things, but you are also doing that and modeling that. Talked a lot yesterday about lead by example. A lot of this stuff is going to be lead by example. Okay, do your own work. D. This is doing your own work to become self-aware, to heal from past wounds, to increase emotional intelligence. And all of this requires effort in doing your own work. And I am going to say this is not likely work you're going to do on your own. It is really hard to become self-aware without other perspective. We have blinders on to our own stuff. We get in patterns. We end up not seeing like the whole picture a lot of times because we filter things through our tunnel vision. So I'm a therapist, so I'm going to say do your own work with a therapist because I'm going to support my therapists. You could do your own work with somebody else, a life coach, a pastor, a mentor. That might be effective depending on how much of your work you have to do. But if you need to heal from past wounds, therapy. If you have your own past trauma, therapy. You have issues or symptoms of mental health disorders and diagnosis, therapy. The only way that you're going to be aware of how those things show up and impact you is if you are intentional about it. Doing your own work takes effort, folks. Like it's not a one and done, and it's not something that just falls on your lap. This is intentional effort to understand yourself, to be aware of yourself, and to make adjustments as needed for things that have negative impact, either on you or the people around you. Again, this has to be important to you guys. Like, you're not going to do your own work if it's not important. You're not going to do your own work if this kind of leadership is not important to you. We know plenty of leaders that have not done their own work. It is obvious. Yet they still lead. So it's not a requirement, but like I said, I certainly think it's going to make you lead better. Okay, the next E is up. Embrace difference. Appreciation for and finding strength and diversity and differences between us, and looking for the value of people being different. So again, instead of trying everybody to fit in the same bucket, what kind of synergy and collaboration can we get from the differences? What kind of other perspectives or viewpoints can we get from the differences and the diversity between us? And this is differences in like I said, in upbringing and background and where you live in the world and all kinds of stuff. I think if we can embrace this difference, number one, we're increasing pathways towards safety and reducing pathways towards harm. And number two, not only is it inclusive, but I think it actually boosts morale. And then ultimately, that's better for the organization, for the team, for your bottom line, for everything. If people feel valued, even though they are different, then there's a positive result and a feeling that comes from that. And when we feel like this at work, for sure, it's likely that we are to perform better and at least be more intentional about it, right? Like we have to feel valued and cared for as a human being to be able to really show up well in this world. Yes, I think this is Brandon still popping in here. Your triggers are a good place to start when healing past wounds. Absolutely. Knowing what your triggers are, or what we say now in the trauma-informed world, which is nervous system activations, requires self-awareness. If you have not intentionally tried to look into yourself and figure out what triggers you or activates your nervous system, then you are not going to know, and you cannot start healing past wounds. So to even get to this place, which I fully agree with, you have to be aware of your triggers to begin with. This is where doing your own work is important, guys. Okay, R, repair after ruptures. Learning how to resolve conflict without causing more harm is a serious skill. Embedded in this one is excellent communication skills, specifically human-centered communication skills. This is something I specifically discuss in my training hour for the Trauma Informed Network Leadership Symposium that's happening all month of March, and you can still get your tickets for. Lots of good stuff in there, guys. I'm specifically talking about how conflict isn't a con, and compassion and common humanity can actually lead to resolving conflict easier and improve bottom line. A big piece of this is repairing after ruptures. Learning how to resolve conflict without causing more harm is the serious skill. We need to learn how to do this, and we need to learn how to communicate effectively through hurting somebody, causing a negative impact or negative outcome. If you are the leader, this goes back to like ownership and accountability. So it's not only just owning what you did wrong, but then you actually have to repair whatever damage it may have caused in the interpersonal relationship, even if it's leader follower. That is an interpersonal or professional relationship. And if there has been a rupture, especially due to a decision or choice of the leader, then it's your job to go and repair that with that person and actually like kind of like close up the wound that has maybe happened between you and this other person so that you can move forward in a positive way. S, social responsibility. Again, this isn't necessarily true for all leadership, but this is true for trauma-informed leadership. This is being socially aware and being socially responsible for your impact or change as a result of your leadership position. This has to be in mind when you're making decisions as a leader, at least if you're going to call yourself a trauma-informed leader. There is a piece of trauma-informed care and leadership that that assumes or embedded in it is this social impact piece. And so that means that like the things that we do, especially as leaders, and the decisions and choices that we make have impact on other people, whether directly or indirectly. We need to have that social responsibility in mind in the course of leading. Part of this comes with emotional intelligence and emotional IQ. Social awareness is a piece of that, and social responsibility is a piece of social awareness, right? So not only do you have to to be aware of either the people you serve, the people you lead, or the work that you do and how that impacts. But it has to matter to you that if that impact is negative, right? And not just for the people maybe that follow you, but for any of the work that you do in the world. And, the people that follow you are doing it along with you. What kind of impact does it have? Is it helping people? Is it hurting people? One of the ways that we can think about this in business is in a lot of marketing. You guys know what it feels like to be sold to, or be promised something that doesn't actually occur with what you're being sold. That's not social responsibility. That's profit over people instead of people over profit. And I know you guys know what I mean. So that's just like one little tiny example of how we need to consider social responsibility in the course of our leadership. H, human-centered heart. Again, not required for all leadership, but it is required for trauma-informed leadership, is that you have to have a care, concern, and interest in other humans and other humans' well-being, health, function, and connection to humanity, and valuing humanity as a whole, as it is, without what we produce, but just we are all human. We all have worth and value as a result of being human. This has to be important to you if you're going to call yourself a trauma-informed leader. Actually caring about the well-being of other people needs to be in the forefront of your mind when making decisions or leading. If this is not a part of your repertoire, then you are probably not a trauma-informed leader. And honestly, maybe not for people altogether, but really out for yourself, which, tons of leaders are like that. It's a lot about the prestige. It's about the title. It's about the power, but it's not actually about the people in which they serve or lead. And I think we need more of that out there. But, who am I? Like I always say, I don't make the rules, because if they let me make the rules, things would look a lot different. Okay, we're rounding the corner here in leadership. We are on the I. Inclusive interpersonal skills. This combines language, communication, both verbal and nonverbal, and cultivation of trust. Learning how to use non-biased and non-aggressive language allows for more open, transparent, and real conversations to take place. And when we can do that comfortably, like we have to be comfortable to be able to share like that, then trust can develop. And without trust, there is no safety. So if you are not using inclusive interpersonal skills, it's likely that the people that follow you don't trust you and therefore don't feel safe. And when that happens, they're not going to be honest. Like they're not going to be honest with feedback. They're not going to be honest about their own shortcomings. They're not going to be honest when they need help. They're not going to be honest about things that they see happening in their coworkers. They're not going to be honest about things happening with customers or some sort of client base. They're basically just going to try to keep you happy without like getting in trouble. If there is no trust and no safety, you can't expect people to show up authentically and vulnerably and with honesty. It's just not going to happen. Human evolution, especially like in terms of trauma, interpersonal trauma or relational trauma, has taught us that being open, being vulnerable, and being honest is just painful and just hurts us. So if there is not a sense of safety and trust within the culture, then it's likely you are not going to get honest anything from the people that are there. Okay, P, practice, practice, practice. So you want to take LEADERSHI and practice, practice, practice them. This is actual real life, real time, real people practice. You cannot get good at any of these skills without continual practice. This is part of what I do in my national network, the Integrate Trauma Informed Network, is we do practice these. We have monthly synergy chats where we practice the skills from our community, where we practice trauma-informed leadership skills. I'm in other group spaces in which we practice this. Conflict resolution, collaboration on projects, contracts and partnerships. All of these things require communication, working with other people, and then therefore practice in these skills. So that's it. That's my framework. What do I think the top 3 are? since there are 10 things here that you could practice, and I do encourage you to practice all of them because combined, they sort of create this trauma-informed leadership, which is how we show up and do things. But the top 3 that I think that I'll pull out for you guys is doing your own work, learning how to repair after ruptures, and practicing those things. So these are active skills. These are intentional. Like I said, they take effort. You have to actually want to get good at these things to get good at these things. Why these top 3? Because I think these are absolutely non-negotiable for trauma-informed leaders. You have to be doing your own work. You have to learn how to effectively repair after ruptures, and you have to continually practice these things, which kind of goes back to that lifelong learning. You're welcome, Brandon. I'm so glad that you were here. I hope that you learned something. If you want a little bit more of this and you want some actual ways to practice, so you will get all the information about this leadership framework in my trauma-informed leader guide. And that's available for purchase on my website. You don't even have to contact me. I know for a lot of people, they just don't want to do that. They don't want to have to talk to me, or they don't want to have to call me or whatever. And you don't have to interact with me. You can go to my website right now, www.sarahO'BrienLCSW.com. Look under the Trauma Informed Leadership tab, scroll down, and you fill out the order form, pay right there, and you get a digital download of the Trauma Informed Leader Learning Guide. It has this framework, and it has, oh gosh, probably at least 16, but I'm thinking maybe more like 25 exercises and practices, some that you can do on your own, some that you can do with your team, and some that you can do with other leaders to practice these skills and get better at them. This is available for $49. You can buy it on my website. Like I said, you don't need me for it. If you would like to get it and then have me walk you through this, then you can hire me for coaching and consulting, and then we can use that as our guide for our work together. But it is completely self-guided if you want it to be, and it's totally fine. I encourage you to do it with some others so you can get this accountability and feedback thing, but it's definitely going to give you some tangible exercises to do to start growing in these skills, to start challenging you and sort of pushing you out of your comfort zone or whatever leadership box that you're in right now to getting some of these skills. So take advantage of that. That's over here. The leader learning guide that I'm talking about up here. Some other ways that I can help you with your trauma-informed leadership skills. I have some other freebies on my website. One is an ebook called How to Build Your Emotional Intelligence, 17 Suggestions for Every Person. So this is not comprehensive, but it'll definitely help you get your feet wet in understanding emotional intelligence, and some suggestions on how to improve that. That is free under the free resources section. Also, in the trauma-informed leadership section of my website, there is a link to a short video that's related to an article that I wrote about 5 key principles needed to create a culture of safety. Short 7-minute video breaking down 5 key principles for developing this culture of safety. That is free to view. Also, the article link is on my website as well, right near that if you want to read the article in full. I'm also available for one-to-one coaching for individual growth and leadership skill growth. If you would like to do that, you can hire me for one-to-one coaching. We can do one session. We can do a package of sessions, whatever maybe works for you. And then if you are a business, an organization, a nonprofit, hospital system, educational system, whatever the case may be, I do business to business consulting for executives, managers, team leaders, teams in general, for trauma-informed leadership and trauma-informed principles and practices, and how to adopt those into your workplace, among other things, for employee, person, human health, overall wellness and health. So you can go to the contact page on my website and just fill out that little questionnaire for those services that you are interested in hiring me for or want to work with me on, and I am happy to do so. This is the work I love, guys. I love working with other people. I like creating all of these like handouts and ebooks for you all, but I would love to walk with you through your journey. I have over 15 years of experience of walking with people in their transformational change journeys through psychotherapy, And it's the best part of my work, right? Is to see people come into themselves and be fully themselves and be comfortable with that, and to feel like they've come to a healed and whole and healthy place. And I am happy to do that with you as well. It is the work that I love. I don't think I probably said this in the beginning, but if you've watched any of my other shows, you probably know a little bit about me. But I am a licensed psychotherapist, specifically a licensed clinical social worker in Virginia and Maryland. I'm a trauma-informed leader and leadership strategist, as well as a subject matter expert in trauma-informed care, and mental health. And then, of course, a coach and consultant for leadership strategy and some of my other roles there. I speak, I train. I told you guys I got a training later. I am training and speaking within the Trauma Informed Leadership Symposium about effective conflict resolution and repairing after ruptures. So if you want to get some more from me, purchase your seat for the Integrate Network Trauma Informed Leadership Symposium. You will have access to that information for life. Some good stuff in there, guys. All my badass colleagues are like way cooler, know way more, and better than me. So if you like anything that I'm doing, you're gonna love everything that they're doing. So you really want to grab your seat for that, because it includes pre-recorded talks from at least 10 of our subject matter experts. So you're going to get tons of content on top of other resources. Let me just shout out again to my buddy Andrew and Let's Be Diverse podcast. They are now sponsoring the Healing Hour podcast. This is a great collaboration and partnership with my friends, in hopes that both of us can get into more of the work that we want and support each other in our work. It is great to have community. So that's another thing about trauma-informed leadership, is you can't go at it alone. Not only do you need to practice in real time with real people and receive accountability, but you also need support as a human being. And sometimes leading is hard, and maybe especially right now, and especially if you're in trauma-informed leadership. So find your people and get your community. Andrew is part of my community. Integrate Network is part of my community. Johan is part of my community. Carolyn is part of my community. Lots of people help support me in my leadership roles. And I appreciate you all so much. It helps me stay grounded, helps me stay focused on the work, and it helps me not feel alone in the process. So again, if you want to catch more from me, go to my website, www.sarahobrienlcsw.com. You'll find links to all past Healing Hour episodes on there, including tons of other resources and things that I have going on. Don't forget that you matter and you are worthy. I hope that you have an easy, smooth day and a half left of your week, and that you can have a nice refilling, recharging kind of weekend. Be sure to take care of yourself first and always. I will see you guys next week with another leadership topic, maybe a guest. Thank you so much for dropping in, everyone. Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Johan. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Leanna, for popping in and being a part of my show today. I hope to